when she stops reacting. A good woman does not walk away at the first sign of pain. She stays. She listens. She tries to understand. She fights for the connection, even when it hurts. She asks questions. She raises her voice. Not because she wants to argue, but because she still believes it can be saved. Her emotions are not chaos. They are signals. They are her way of saying this still matters to me. But when she grows quiet, something much deeper is happening. When the fire in her words fades into silence, it's not because she no longer cares, and it's because something inside her is slowly shutting down. Silence is not peace. It is a protective mechanism, a defense that says I've reached my limit. When she stops asking where you've been, when she no longer brings up what's wrong, when her tears dry up without being noticed, it means she's already begun the process of detaching. And here is the truth most men fail to see. Emotional reactions are signs of hope. They mean she's still emotionally invested. She still wants to be heard. But silence is different. Silence is resignation. It is her soul stepping back, not in anger, but in quiet surrender. She may still be in the same room, but psychologically, she has already packed her bags. The absence of conflict is not the return of love. It is often the final stage before the exit. By the time a good woman stops reacting, she's not waiting for change anymore. She's preparing herself to let go. And the tragedy is that most men only begin to notice this silence when it's far too late. Why men hurt. Good women so easily. Good women are naturally patient. They forgive quickly. They hope endlessly. They see potential in people, even when others see problems. When a man falls short, she makes excuses for him. When he disappears emotionally, she fills in the gaps with love. Her strength is quiet and her loyalty is consistent. Her love is not loud, but it runs deep. And because of this, she becomes the easiest person to hurt. It's not that she allows disrespect. It's that she wants to believe there's something worth saving. She tolerates the cold shoulder, the passive indifference, the delayed replies, the broken promises. Not because she lacks self-worth, but because she keeps giving chances. She assumes maybe he's stressed. Maybe he's going through something. Maybe he'll come back to himself. That kindness becomes the very thing that invites repeated harm. Many men do not hurt a good woman intentionally, makomats, but they do it repeatedly. And that repetition is where the damage lives. Because when a man doesn't face immediate consequences for his neglect, he subconsciously begins to test how far her love can stretch. He convinces himself that her silence means approval, that her forgiveness means forgetfulness, that her presence means she's fine. But she's not. She's bleeding quietly behind the scene every time he dismisses her feelings, every time he chooses convenience over connection. He chips away at the foundation she's trying to protect. There's a dangerous illusion many men fall into. That because she stays, she's unbreakable. That because she's calm, she's unaffected. But the truth is, good women don't snap. They erode, slowly, silently, until there's nothing left to fix. And when the erosion is complete, no apology, no gesture, no sudden change of heart will bring her back to who she used to be. She gave too much, and he noticed too late. When her patience starts to wear thin, patience is beautiful until it becomes self-destruction. A good woman doesn't run when things get hard. She stays. She gives you time. She gives you space. She gives you every benefit of the doubt. But patience, when stretched too far, becomes a burden she carries alone. and that burden begins to whisper dangerous things in her mind. At first, she wonders if you're just distracted. Then she wonders if she's asking for too much. Eventually, she begins to question herself. Maybe I'm not attractive enough. Maybe I'm not interesting anymore. Then maybe I'm the reason he's distant. Her thoughts turn inward, and that's when the erosion begins. She's no longer just disappointed in you. She's disappointed in herself for still hoping you'll show up differently. This is the quiet breakdown most men never see, because she still smiles. She still functions. But inside, her self-worth is shrinking. Her boundaries blur, her voice weakens. She starts to tolerate what once broke her, not because she agrees, but because she's exhausted. She stops expressing what hurts because she no longer believes it will matter. Psychologically, this is known as internalized blame. In relationships where communication breaks down and respect fades, the more emotionally invested partner often turns pain inward. Women, especially those wired for empathy, are more likely to absorb blame rather than assign it. Instead of saying, "He's neglecting me," she starts thinking, "I must be hard to love." That's the hidden tragedy. She doesn't lose love for him first. She loses love for herself. And when a woman stops believing she's worthy of being heard, being chosen, being protected, she begins to shrink from the inside out. Not in anger, but in quiet defeat. And from there, the distance becomes permanent. Love doesn't die all at once. Love doesn't end in a sudden collapse. It fades. It weakens. It dissolves slowly beneath the surface. When a good woman begins to disconnect, it's not because she stopped loving. It's because she's been forced to love in isolation for too long. Her affection doesn't vanish. It withers quietly, day by day, as her emotional needs go unmet and her presence becomes invisible. She still shows up. She still smiles in photos. She still makes dinner. But inside, she is slipping away. The emotional connection that once held everything together becomes thin, fragile, and eventually non-existent. This is not bitterness. It's not revenge. It's survival. It's what happens when someone's soul has knocked at the same locked door for too long and finally walks away. Jordan Peterson once said, "You ignore the soul long enough, and it leaves." That's not poetry, that's a psychological reality. Human beings have a threshold for pain. And when a woman crosses that threshold without being seen or heard, she develops what's called emotional numbness. It's not that she doesn't care, it's that she no longer has the energy to feel what used to overwhelm her. Emotional numbness is not a choice. It's a defense. It's how her mind protects itself when her heart has been hurt too often. She no longer cries during arguments because she no longer hopes for resolution. She no longer gets jealous because she no longer feels connected. She doesn't ask if you're okay because she stopped believing you'll answer honestly. This is the part where most men become confused. They think she's fine now. They mistake numbness for peace. But numbness is the final warning. When a good woman no longer reacts, no longer feels, no longer hopes, she's already gone, even if her body is still there. Men always wake up when it's too late. When a good woman finally walks away, most men stand in shock. They ask why. They demand an explanation. They replay the last few weeks, trying to find the moment things fell apart. But they're looking in the wrong place. The end didn't start in the goodbye, it started long before that. In the silence they ignored, in the tension they brushed off, in the tears they chose not to ask about. Men often remember the final days, The packed bags, the cold goodbye, the empty side of the bed. But they forget the countless times she waited for them to come home and actually show up emotionally. They forget the nights she went to sleep feeling invisible. They forget the conversations she tried to have that ended in dismissal. She didn't leave suddenly. She left gradually. And he didn't see it because he wasn't looking. This is a pattern rooted deep in masculine psychology. Many men are conditioned to respond only to results, not signals. They wait until something breaks before acknowledging there was even pressure. So when she pulls away, they don't notice. When she stops opening up, they think it's just a phase. When she starts to seem distant, they assume she'll bounce back. And when she's finally gone, they are blindsided. But the truth is, the signs were always there. She gave him chances and she dropped hints. She reached out in quiet ways, not with dramatic ultimatums, but with fading energy, softer tones, fewer smiles. And because she didn't scream, he thought she was fine. Because she didn't threaten to leave, he thought she never would. Only when her absence becomes undeniable does he begin to see her presence for what it was. And by then, the damage is done. Not because he didn't care, but because he didn't care soon enough. Timing is everything, and love, when neglected long enough, doesn't end in anger. It ends in silence. She becomes someone else. The woman who once laughed easily, touched gently, and loved without hesitation begins to change. Her warmth cools. Her eyes don't light up the same way. She's still kind, still composed, but there's a wall now. A subtle, invisible barrier that wasn't there before. And most people assume she's changed, that she's colder, harder, less trusting. But that's not the truth. She didn't change who she is. She changed how much of herself she's willing to give. That's not transformation, that's adaptation. It's what happens when tenderness is met with indifference too many times. It's what happens when vulnerability becomes punishment instead of intimacy. She learned that giving all of herself only left her emptier. So she recalibrated. She learned to protect her softness behind a shield of silence. Psychologically, this is a response to repeated emotional injury. When someone keeps experiencing betrayal, neglect, or rejection, the brain rewires its response to attachment. Instead of reaching out, she pulls back. Instead of expressing, she withholds. It's not bitterness, it's self-preservation. She's not being difficult. She's just tired of being open in a world that didn't know what to do with her openness. She still loves, but it's more measured now. She still listens, but with caution. She still hopes, but not like before. There's a quiet wisdom in her now, born not from age, but from pain. She doesn't hate anyone, but she no longer gives people unlimited access to her heart. And that shift, though invisible to many, changes everything. Because once a woman learns to stop overextending herself, she no longer fits into the life of a man who only knew how to take. Hurting her means hurting yourself. When a man hurts a good woman, he isn't just damaging her heart. He's damaging the very part of himself that she helped bring to life. A good woman doesn't just offer love, she offers structure, she offers belief. She brings out a version of a man he often couldn't reach on his own. She calms his chaos, she softens his edges. She holds space for his pain without judgment. And when he pushes her away, he loses more than a partner. He loses the mirror that showed him who he could become. Jordan Peterson once said, "A good woman helps civilize a man. Without her, he returns to chaos." This isn't poetic exaggeration. It's neuropsychological truth. Women, especially those grounded in compassion, act as emotional regulators in relationships. Their presence brings balance. Their intuition catches what logic overlooks. Their emotional availability gives men permission to explore feelings they were never taught to name. And when that presence is taken for granted, the man doesn't just revert to old patterns, he falls back into disorder. What many men fail to understand is that masculinity doesn't thrive in isolation. It sharpens in challenge, yes, but it matures in connection. A good woman holds a man accountable, not through force, but through quiet expectation. She sees his potential and reflects it back to him until he begins to believe it himself. When she leaves, he's not just left with an empty room. He's left with a silence where his growth used to live. The loss doesn't hit right away. It creeps in slowly. The lack of encouragement, the absence of calm, the missing softness that once helped him regulate his storms. And suddenly, everything feels heavier, colder, louder. Because when he hurt her, he thought he was in control. But what he really did was cut the lifeline to the best version of himself. Regret doesn't bring her back. Regret is a mirror, not a door. It shows you everything you missed, everything you dismissed, everything you broke, but it doesn't give you a way back. When a good woman is gone, regret arrives not as redemption, but as a shadow that lingers in her absence. It doesn't heal, it haunts. Most men realize what they had only after it's lost. This is the tragedy of delayed realization. When she was there, they thought there was always more time. More time to fix things, more time to say what mattered, more time to finally listen. But time runs out quietly. It doesn't announce itself. It just stops offering chances. And when the silence becomes permanent, the mind begins to replay every missed opportunity in painful detail. He remembers the look in her eyes when she stopped asking for affection. He remembers the night she went to bed early, not because she was tired, but because she had given up talking. He remembers all the things he thought were small, now feeling enormous. Regret doesn't shout, it whispers it to a yum. When the room feels colder without her. Psychologically, this is the aftermath of neglect. The brain struggles to reconcile the loss with the belief that it was preventable. And it was. That's what makes regret so heavy. It's not just about her being gone. It's knowing you played a role in her decision to leave. Regret is not the beginning of change. It's the echo of too much silence, too many delays, and too little care. By the time a man feels it fully, the door has already closed, and what remains is not hope, but the weight of a lesson learned far too late. She's not coming back. Good women don't walk away easily. They don't give up without trying everything. They stay longer than they should. They forgive more than they receive. They bend until it hurts. But once a good woman decides to leave, especially because of deep emotional pain, she's not just leaving a person. She's leaving the version of herself that believed it could work. She doesn't leave in anger. That's the mistake many make. They think her silence means bitterness. But it's not rage that keeps her from returning. It's broken trust. It's the quiet realization that her love was not enough to change what hurt her. She no longer believes in the words that once gave her hope. Her heart didn't harden overnight. It simply reached the point where believing again would be self-betrayal. When trust is shattered at the core, love doesn't get rebuilt the same way. Psychologically, a woman who's been deeply hurt doesn't lose the capacity to love, but she loses the ability to love blindly. And returning to the one who broke her means reopening a wound she spent too long learning how to close. There's no dramatic farewell, no grand exit, just a steady pulling away until the distance is unbridgeable. And when she's finally gone, she's not hoping you chase her. She's hoping she doesn't look back. Not because she hates you, but because she finally chose herself. Once that shift happens, there's no reverse. She's no longer the woman who begged to be understood. She's the woman who understands too well what she deserves, and that clarity is irreversible. She's not coming back, not because she wants to hurt you, but because she's done hurting herself. Only a mature man can keep a good woman. A good woman doesn't need perfection. She needs presence. She needs consistency. She needs a man who chooses her every day, not out of obligation, but out of conscious commitment. The kind of man who doesn't let her wonder where she stands. The one who understands that love isn't just something you feel. It's something you protect, something you show, something you grow. Jordan Peterson said it clearly. You don't deserve a good woman. You earn the right to be with one every single day. That's not a punishment. It's a call to rise, a call to grow beyond ego and impulse, to become the kind of man whose actions reflect the value he places on her presence. Immature men think love is possession. They believe once she says yes, the work is done. But mature men know the opposite is true. Love is never static. It requires attention, humility, and the willingness to admit when you're wrong. A good woman doesn't need grand gestures. She needs to feel emotionally safe. She needs to be seen, to be heard, to be appreciated not for what she gives, but for who she is. Psychologically, a relationship thrives not when needs are demanded, but when they are offered freely and received with gratitude. A mature man makes space for her strength without feeling threatened. He welcomes her softness without taking advantage. He communicates before it becomes conflict. He listens before she has to repeat herself. Keeping a good woman isn't about convincing her to stay. It's about giving her no reason to leave. And that's a responsibility that never ends. Not because she's fragile, but because she's rare. And when you're given something rare, the only right response is to never stop earning it.